Hi everyone and welcome to Chic Chats. I am Jeanette Ipapo-Tuason, the co-founder of Tuason Racing and author of Chic Driven. And I am with...
I'm Issa Litton, the founder of One Lit Corp. Together, Jeanette and I are about to give you hashtag your best life in bullet points.
This episode is very close to my heart because I have a different learner. And during community lockdown, because of COVID, it was such a big struggle to do online distance learning, especially if you have a different learner or some kids with exceptionalities. So parents have been worried, how can they do their therapy, etc., etc. So, today we want to talk about how to maximize the learning time of the child.
And of course, I think today is all about inclusivity, that really everyone has their own learning journeys, diba? So what more for parents who have children, like you said, with exceptionalities, parents of different learners, listen up. You might, even if you don't, you might be able to help point the way or give tips to your friends who do. So when it comes to distance learning, especially now, I know we're already pretty much halfway through the school year. Though for some, if they started October, they're only beginning. Don't worry. That's why we're here and we're talking about it in Chic Chats. So we're about to give you some tips from parents and even an expert, a doctor, who can tell us how best to engage our children with exceptionalities to do their academic tasks. So joining us today, Jeanette,
Okay, so today we're going to chat with the fellow parent, Michelle Aventajado, the Executive Director of Best Buddies and Special Needs Advocate. Michelle, please, thank you for joining Chic Chats.
Yeah, hi. She's an advocate for inclusion for people with exceptionalities. Hey, Michelle, she's my co-parent.
Hi. Hey, guys. Hi. How are you? So good to see you here. Thanks for having me.
Michelle was the one who made me do breastfeeding. If she didn't help me out, I would have not breastfed the twins at all.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, she let me borrow her pop. She taught me. She gave me an expert. Oh my God, I owe her so much.
Well, I love the parenting tips.
Yeah, so we're all in this
together, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Here's the best part. Michelle, actually being on top of Best Buddies, has a lot to share because she's a resource speaker when it comes to children with exceptionalities. Because she has Jelly, who is really a ball of sunshine. She's got a lot of attitude. I love her. I love her.
Sassy.
Yes, that's it. No, she's got personality. So how's Jelly nowadays? Jelly is 9 years old. She has Down syndrome. And she's adapting. How is she adapting to distance learning? How is she adapting to online learning?
Well, so I think we have to remember that all of the same stresses and things that come along with living in community quarantine, they affect us, which I know we can express how we're affected. The kids, it affects them the same way. So if we miss our friends, they, of course, miss their friends too. If we miss going out, we know that they miss going out to school and to their activities as well. So while I think in the beginning we were all kind of adjusting and she was doing great, I think it has made a huge difference in her speech language development, being around all of us. Like, everyone... We're all here together, by the grace of God. Thank God we're all together. Everyone's healthy. We're in one place together. So that actually was a huge benefit to her, to all of us. Yeah, her language, her ability to express herself. I think drawback is she's not as active because we're cooped up in a condo, right? Physically active, physically. But if I'm going to say how she's adjusting overall, well, we have a routine, which is important for kids of all abilities, not just kids with exceptionalities, right? It's even more important for kids with exceptionalities, but everyone should be on a schedule. I'm sure you ladies know, when we put ourselves on a little bit of a schedule, it feels better. And right? It just adds to,
routine.
You can adjust when you need to, right? You rest when you need to, but for the most part, you get up, you get dressed, you do your normal thing, even if it's, nighttime pajamas to daytime pajamas. You're still doing right? So she's doing well. But if I'm going to say, like, in terms of online distance learning, of course, everything is done through Zoom and through, these different apps, just like we're doing this on the internet now. So
Did you have to explain it to her? Did you have to explain what's happening? Because she's like, why am I not going out? Why are we not going to the car? I mean, there's a routine that I'm sure helped you
right
for her, right? Like the routine to get to school, to prepare for summer, all those things. But now it stopped. How did you deal with that?
Right. Absolutely. So even in dealing with any child or explaining anything to any one of the kids, you have to relay the information or give the information in a way that they can understand. Of course, age appropriate. So in Jelly's case, it's bite-sized pieces. It's no, we can't go outside yet or we can't go to school yet. I mean, there was this one lesson Jelly had where they're learning proper and common nouns. So the school, which is a building, but has a school. And then the proper would be One World School, where she attends school, right? So at some point, she was saying to me, Mom, I don't want to go to Zoom school. No Zoom school, Mom.
Zoom school.
No Zoom school. I want to go to the building. And, she was very clear.
Yeah.
And of course, for me, I was like, wow, you get it. You know that we have to go to the building because that was the lesson we were working on.
The specifics were there. I think she nailed that.
Right?
Yeah.
Totally. So
how did you explain?
Well, I explained we can't go outside because of the virus. We have to be careful, that she knows washing her hands. She can't touch her face, her mask, even her shield. She knows already. Like, she won't go out the door without a mask and a shield. But then she'll say, oh, we can't go. And no, babe, we can't go. That's virus, right? So she understands.
Great.
As much as she needs to. She doesn't need to understand anything more than that, I think.
Any tantrums or resistance? Because sometimes it's about what they want, right?
Definitely.
If they don't get what they want, sometimes it's like, I don't want to understand why I don't get it. It's just, why don't I get it? So
definitely. There, especially in the past couple of weeks, I think I even posted about it because there have been some meltdowns and, some weepy moments. And, a lot of times she also maybe can't express exactly how she's feeling. But I can see that she's so frustrated and she just, she's tired of being locked up. But that's when, we distract. We bake cookies or we do something else. That's where, even taking work and play, right? Yeah. Making even work something that is fun, right? So making cookies is actually a really good way to teach about measuring. It's to teach about process and directions. So these are all things that I know many of us, we all have our kids at home. We're not so focused on necessarily, the reading, the writing, and the arithmetic, but these life skills, being able to bake cookies is pretty important.
Exactly. They'll be able to know their way around the kitchen.
That's right. So Michelle, diba, I think one of the things that the pedias or the teachers will tell us before with our for our different learner kids was to minimize screen time. But now we have no choice.
Right.
Diba? So how did you manage that?
Well, so here, this is where work and play are also very important in terms of like having her define space for her screen time for school, and then actually allowing her iPad time as a reward. And then, my brilliant daughter, Gia, my eldest, she's sitting off camera right now. She's right next to me. She's like, Mom, you can put a timer on her iPad. And then when she's, when the timer is up, all the apps that you don't want her to use are locked down.
That's smart. I think every parent should do that for their kids.
Right? Even sa asawa, kailangan lagyan ng screen time.
Can you tell Gia? You teach Tita Issa how to do this.
Totally,
But I
totally.
think that's smart. But again, distance learning. Are they? Of course, they have stuff to submit. How's she doing with stuff
Yes,
like that? Like the written work? Does she record herself? That's.
right,
I mean, how about stuff to submit? Like
right,
the requirements.
right. So everybody is involved, and this is where I know, Jeanette, your kids are all, you have Kuya and you have Ate also who can help the little ones. For us, I know, so I'll print everything if something has to be printed. If it's an art project, Miguel is a MMA student, so he's very artistic. He likes doing the art projects with Jelly. If it's something else that needs a little bit more attention, Gia might step in and help. Because I'm working from home also, and so is Nino. And I can't be on top of everything, but the fact that Team Jelly Bean really is a team, we all kind of pitch in and help. So even with the assignments, if it's printed, I'll hand it over to Diego, and Diego takes the photo of it and then uploads it to the classroom. Now we're working on the life skills for Jelly to actually learn how to do that herself. So the app is on her iPad. She can take the photo of it. And so that's what we're working on now. That's our new
Wonderful.
life skill. Yeah.
I love that.
So
How
empowering.
encouraging it all sounds. Yeah, it's doable. That's just
It
it. That's
is.
the whole point. It's very doable. A lot of patience, a lot of hands on deck, but
Yes.
you have the
Yeah.
support for it. Why not? It's really like, yeah, that's what a team is for. That's what family and support groups are for. That's great to hear. How
It
about you?
takes a village. It takes a village.
It does take a village. So I guess in our case, because I actually have three little ones pa. So I have a 9 and the twin-year-old girls that are 6. So Kuya and Ate, when they didn't have school yet, were the ones who were setting up the kids. They had the computer and an iPad. So what we wanted to do was to go paperless, which actually didn't really work. So the kids will go to do the Google Meets in the computer, and then they have the iPads to do their Seesaw or their MobiMax or whatever apps the school is using. But what I realized, yes, like Michelle was saying, we have a screen time. We also manage it with using RPAC. It's an app that I'm allowed to turn off all the computers or all the iPads of my kids or iPhones. So those really help as well. But I think I also agree about the schedule. It's so important that the kids know what's going to happen during the day. Because, or else they're just going to bug you. Oh, what's happening happen now? What's next? What's next? What's next? And it really irritates you, especially if you're busy also during that day. So that's what we do on
Right.
our side.
How about
Right.
you as a parent, Mish? Of course, we've been talking about Jelly, how Jelly is handling things, how everyone's helping Jelly. But what about you? Let's not forget the parent also has to be okay. So,
Right.
how are you balancing all this?
I have no idea. I think it's only by the grace of God.
Thank you for the honesty. You don't have to have all the answers, everybody.
I mean,
On my
Go ahead.
end, it's the grace of God and the grace of wine.
yes. Cheers.
Cheers.
Absolutely. I have, I've never been a big wine drinker, but I have to admit I am enjoying a glass of wine on Friday night after school is all over. And that's okay, right? But, in all seriousness, it really does take a village. I think for Jelly, we have a whiteboard.
Mm-hmm.
And so she uses that for class a lot. But then there's another whiteboard that we can use for just like she loves ticking things off. She's very much like her mama in needing to check things off that they're done. So we list them and we help her accomplish them. When they're done, then she's like, yes, I'm all done.
That's a great tip. I think that's besides investing in obviously either a tablet, iPad, laptop, whatever you may have the device. Let's not forget tactical, especially for I think children with exceptionalities. It's the feel, of things, paper, writing with a pen, crayons, chalk if you have it, right? Or that's why you bake cookies, cookie dough, and all that. I think tactical learning let's make sure that's not lost. Just because usually those are provided in the actual schools.
Yeah. So on our side,
that
we also
kind
do
of
PE. Yeah. We have
oh,
PE in the
yes.
mornings. So it's the dad that does the PE. We also have Sunday baking, and then we also have arts and crafts by the ate. So that's good. Yes, it does take a village.
Mish, are you ever worried that because again, raising Jelly was always about independence. Like it was a big deal when she was off to school without you. Now that she's
Yeah.
back, with simply being surrounded by family members, is there some sort of anxiety or fear that she might become overly dependent on you? I mean, I know you're working on her independence anyway, but just
Yes.
back to like, just I'm used to these people, my family members again. Do you see beyond this pandemic?
Yes,
What
I
would
do
you
think
like?
that's something that parents of kids with exceptionalities are concerned about.
Mhm.
That transitions are hard sometimes for kids who learn differently, especially when they like routines. And so now if we're in this
Yeah.
routine where, this is what we do every day, and then we have to change it, there have been many parents who have contacted me, just what are you doing? What's working? Nothing's working for me in this sense. And I think a lot of times if we just share a little bit about it and share what works, but everything, I guess in due time, just
We'll,
like the transition of like how we are here now, we took some
Mhm.
time to adjust. And I'm going to, dare I say, Jelly is thriving in quarantine. So I will say that. I'll own it and I'll claim it because I see
Yeah.
it.
Because
But
you and daddy and her ate, kuyas,
all
she's
of them,
all the people who love her. And
I
24.
think I think Michelle prepared some tips for us. Michelle, why don't you take us through it?
yeah. Okay, great. So I think what works for us, so of course, we're putting it in context of what works for Jelly. Jelly is very visual. Jelly is also, she's a kinesthetic learner, so she likes to move a lot as well. And like I said, she's been thriving in this situation. At the same time, she's very social. So the first point that I would like to make, of course, is making sure there's a defined area for her to learn. This is where we go to school, Zoom school, and then this is where you can play. So even on that big computer, the desktop where we usually have her do school, that's not a place where she'll play. We won't let her watch her YouTube videos there. We won't put any games on that computer. It's really meant just for work. Second one is, of course, making even the most mundane tasks, whether it's, checking off the things on the list that she has to complete for the day, or finishing her classes, making it feel like it's play, right? I mean, just like everything, if the moment you make something exciting for a kid, and it could be even in your intonation of how you speak to the kids, like, we are ready for math class. Are you ready for math class? Let's do it. It's really the kids get our cues. They get their cues from us. Okay, so number 3, of course, is the checklist. I shared earlier how Jelly loves ticking things off. Even her check, she loves putting her check in red or her check in the box. And that is very much like me. I feel like I'm very productive when I make my list of very important things to do in the morning and then check them all off. And then you feel like you can reward yourself with something. Number 4, of course, is because she is a kinesthetic learner, because she needs to move. And it's also actually really good for kids. I don't know about your kids, not being able to move in PE. Jeanette mentioned earlier that her kids have PE with dad. They need to move physically, 30 minutes a day at least. This is like part of who they are, part of being a kid. And it's good for their physical and, of course, their mental development and their mental health. I mean, you all know when we work out, we feel better. Number 5, of course, is empowering the kids to make choices. So when we talk about choices, I'm not sure if you guys knew or not, but I am an educator by trade. So I do have a teaching degree. And when we offer choices, so we'll say, okay, Jelly, do you want to do this math worksheet before lunch, or do you want to do it after lunch? offering that choice of before or after, that's her choice. She gets to choose when she wants to do it. But you're still making sure she completes what she needs to complete, because you're saying, this is a worksheet, it's important, you have to do it, you're going to finish it, but you can choose when. So that's the, empowering her to make choices, providing opportunities for social interaction. So this is really important. I know you guys, I don't know if you guys are doing this or not, but I mentioned on Friday nights that I'll have my wine. Sometimes I'll call up my girlfriend and I'll say, let's have a Zoom session. And we all sit with our wine after the kids have already had dinner and nobody's like, they're bathed and they're relaxed, and we can have a half hour or an hour to just catch up with one another. And have a glass of wine. The kids need the social interaction too, even more so with individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, because they're often socially isolated to begin with. If statistically speaking, if you look at individuals like Jelly, by the time she's 21, if I'm not vigilant in how I care for her, the only people she'll interact with are her immediate family and her medical team. So even with Best Buddies, this is something that we're doing every Saturday afternoon. We make sure we have a 4 p.m. Zoom session for anyone who wants to join. You can come and join for any ability, any age. Come hang out with us. You're included. So that's a social interaction that everybody looks forward to. Number 7, of course, is remembering, well, you know best for your child, right? So whether your child is a different learner or not, you know that child. I know that Jelly does so much better in the morning for her sessions, for classes. So even when the teacher started scheduling some of her classes towards 3 o'clock, I mentioned to the teacher, because this is, everybody's in on that planning. When I say that we're a team, her therapists, the teachers in the classroom, even the administrator, and of course her dev ped, we're all in this in terms of setting her goals. If they set a 3 o'clock class and I say, okay, we'll try it, but I'm going to let you know, best time for Jelly is usually before 12. So if we can schedule all of her classes from 8 till 12, even if it's susunod, she'll do better at that time than she will in the afternoon after lunch. So you know your child, and you can advocate for them even with the teachers. I think that's really, when it comes down to it, whether your child has exceptionalities or not, you know your child, and you're able to predict or even determine what works best for them based on how they learn, how they express themselves, and what works for them.
I love the Zoom time. Yes, social skills. Again, even if not physically, I love how, again, this is why Michelle is an advocate for inclusivity. Inclusive, getting everybody on board. And that's the fun part.
Absolutely.
I think that's the fun
the
part.
more the merrier.
I love all of it.
Now Michelle will bring you back in again for a Q&A, but now we're going to bring in our expert. Michelle, we'll see you in a little bit.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so joining us today is a child psychologist at Ledesma Clinic for Neuropsychological Services and St. Luke's Medical Center. Everyone, please welcome Dr. Rica Ramos. Hey, Doctora.
Hi, Doctora.
Hi. Thanks for having me on this stormy day.
Yes, it's quite stormy today. So Doctora actually also helps me with my kids. So I asked her to give us some tips on how this whole situation, the online distance learning, is affecting those different learners. So Doctora, what's the impact of this situation with children for different learners? What's the main impact?
I think, as Michelle mentioned earlier also, one of the biggest changes for a lot of kids, and not just kids who are differently able, it's really the loss of routines and the lack of, the normalcy that we're used to in our daily life, and for children, as she mentioned also for her daughter, when they're used to certain routines or ways of doing things, it can be a challenge to have to adjust. If you can't go out, you can't visit Lola, the things that you used to do, you can no longer do. So that's one of the big challenges for kids who have special needs or are differently able. And related to that, because of the pandemic, they've also had to learn, health
Manage their
protocols.
frustrations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
also that's part of it. Yeah, like not being able to do the things that they are used to doing.
Want.
And then having to learn all these new things, like, having to wear a face mask, a face shield, having to wash your hands. And for kids with like sensory processing issues, that can really be a struggle for them. So, parents, need to be able to teach them how to do it, because it's also for their safety. And then, the limited opportunities for socialization really has a big impact. I mean, we're dealing with kids here, and kids want to be with other kids, right? Even if they're,
Right.
with special
Yeah.
needs, they enjoy playing and being with other children. And it's not so much just the socialization that they benefit from per se, but, when you play with other kids, you also get to practice your emotional skills, like knowing how to share, how to deal with frustration, things like that. And if you're just cooped up at home, and let's say you don't have any siblings or other playmates, those are opportunities for learning that are sort of like lost at this moment. And like, let's say for kids with ADHD, can you imagine like being like just in a condo and not being able to go out, and like bouncing off the walls and all that. And then, of course, as Issa mentioned, just the frustration, the uncertainty, the difficulties in understanding the situation. It's not easy for kids who are differently able to really understand like, why the world has sort of like paused. Like why our life has suddenly changed. And
Why
it's been
take
what
those?
yeah, and it's been what 7 months, and people don't really know how long is this going to last. So a lot of these things can bring on anxiety, fears, worries, frustrations. So those are a lot of the significant impact of the pandemic on us. And in reference to today's topic, really the challenge of having to adjust to an entirely new learning system for a lot of students, not just those who are different learners.
So what should we watch out for? Because this is heavy, especially like I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of a child. I
Right.
mean, why? Talagang there's a lot of explanation, but sometimes it's like why? Isn't it funny, right? So
Right.
it's such a frustrating scenario, really. Such a
Right.
frustrating
Yeah.
scenario, and some parents will go lead by example. Like, look, mommy and daddy are not going out either, so we're in this together. But what should we watch out for then, social, emotionally, psychological impacts
Right.
on our children, especially for children with exceptionalities, because
Right.
they think it even more. It has a bigger impact for some, maybe. Than why, right? I can
Right.
imagine.
Yeah. Right. I guess. Well, the first thing I guess I want to make clear is that the whole situation is really stressful for everybody, and so having reactions to stress is normal, diba? I mean, like, teens and children. I mean, even
Even
us adults. Yeah.
yeah, even
All of us
tantrums,
will
frustration.
have different reactions to this whole pandemic and the stress that it has brought. And a lot of these reactions are really normal. I mean, when you're under a situation like this, it's normal to feel sad that you're not able to see your friends. It's normal to feel worried, like, am I going to get sick? Is Lola going to die? And things like that. So a lot of these, feelings of worry or sadness and difficulties maybe concentrating, like you're kind of thinking of, what's going to happen, or even things like for teenagers, I'm not going to have my senior ball, things like that. Those are all fairly normal reactions. But the Centers for Disease Control listed a few red flags or things that we should watch out for in our kids, that should sort of like, bring some attention and concern for some parents. Okay. So I think I have a slide for this, but you can just
Yeah,
add it to that.
I'm
Yeah.
also taking notes. I'm also taking notes. I think the parent out there. So listen up.
Okay, so for younger kids, it could manifest as excessive crying or irritation. Sometimes they'll be very clingy, or like you mentioned, Isa, like suddenly having a lot of tantrums, for the smallest things. Sometimes there can be regression where they go back to behaviors that they had outgrown, suddenly wetting their beds, or suddenly not wanting to separate from mom and dad when they had previously been, pretty independent and doing things on their own. And then there's also excessive worry or anxiety or sadness. And I emphasize here the word excessive because, as I said, feeling worried or sad is a
It's
normal
normal.
reaction, yeah. But excessive, then that's a bit of a red flag, and I'll get into that a bit more. No? And then like changes in the eating and sleeping pattern of your child. Are they suddenly not sleeping well, or sleeping too much, or having a hard time sleeping, or suddenly getting nightmares very often? Or in terms of eating patterns, like are they suddenly not eating or eating too much?
Yeah.
Um, there's also for older teens, it can come across as suddenly being very irritable about the smallest
Moody.
things, moody, and
Yeah.
like acting out, like suddenly like having some attitude towards their parents, when typically they're, very well behaved and respectful, So these changes in a way, and in the way they behave or relate to the adults around them. And then
What?
school wise, sometimes there's like you might note that they're suddenly struggling in school, having a hard time with their academics, or refusing to submit requirements, not wanting to attend their classes online, and
Mhm.
then difficulties concentrating, like I said, like parang being preoccupied with other things and not being able to focus on what they need to focus on. And then also like losing interest in activities they used to enjoy. So for all of a sudden, they just want to be cooped up in their room. They don't want to be with their friends, even on Zoom, things like that. Or unexplained aches and pains. Like all of a sudden, they're complaining about headaches, tummy aches, and you can't really figure out the cause for that. So these are some of the red flags, yeah, that the
That's a
CDC.
lot, actually. So thank you for really breaking that down for us. But here's the more important question. If we do observe these, what can we do?
Okay. Yeah. Going back first, I mean, because I don't want parents to panic and say, oh my God, my kids are showing all
Like
these
a
things.
red
Okay.
flag.
So, so there are certain factors that you also need to consider, So, like, how often do these behaviors occur, and how persistent have they been? Like, if your child just had like one bad nightmare, maybe that was just like a very stressful day for her. But if their nightmares are recurrent, then maybe that's something to be concerned about. Then how intense or severe also are the behaviors? Is it beginning to impair the child's daily functioning? Like if they're so worried that, they're scared of like, if daddy just has to go out, they go into like a panic attack and say, dad, you're gonna get sick and you might die and all that, and they're not able to manage their emotions. So things like that you have to sort of consider, because as I said, anxiety is a normal reaction. Then how prolonged are these episodes? Like if the child has a tantrum, like before, like, after maybe 10 minutes, you've been able to calm them down, but now are tantrums like really taking so long, So those are things that you probably want to consider. And then how different are these behaviors? Are they, my child was never like this, and all of a sudden, he's displaying these kinds of behaviors. So after considering all of that, as a parent, and if you're really concerned, you could really go and seek help. Reach out to your pediatrician. If your child has a developmental or neurodevelopmental pediatrician, reach out to them and tell them, doc, I'm observing these changes or these behaviors in my child, and I'm a little concerned. So, what do we do? Sometimes they may refer you to a psychologist or a psychiatrist just to be able to further explore, what could be going on. It could be a normal reaction, or could there be something more? If it's school-related issues, then it would be good to talk to the teacher, and find out, how can we help my child who's currently struggling. So there are people that you can reach out to. But
So,
as a parent, there are also ways that you can support your child. Mhm. Yeah.
Doc, going back to online distance learning, no? So I think
Okay.
there's advantages and disadvantages. What are the advantage of, this situation at the moment? Kasi there's always a silver lining naman, di
Right.
ba?
Yeah. I think like for distance learning, I mean, one of the advantages, especially for differently abled learners, is really that it can sort of allow for a more one-on-one approach. Like, the teachers can spend more time with the child, a lot, like let's say 15 minutes of, working on a specific topic with the child. So it allows a bit more flexibility. So it's easier to individualize maybe the work that the child needs to do. The pace can be adjusted. When you're in a face-to-face classroom situation, the child kind of has to go along with everybody else. But if they need a little more time to do things, the pace can be adjusted. Some requirements can also be decreased. Maybe instead of focusing on like all these different topics. I believe the DepEd has come out with what they call the minimum expected learning competencies for this current school year, where they sort of have adjusted the requirements for each grade level in recognition of the fact that school is really not normal at this time. And I think one advantage also is that it allows for parent involvement, or as in Michelle's case, family involvement. And I think that's a great advantage, that everybody gets to help out. On the other hand, though, I mean, we know that there are challenges that come with this new form of learning, whether your child is has special needs or is like a regular, typically developing child. Okay, for me, I mean, personally, I'm not a digital native. I'm pretty low tech, so I think navigating the learning systems, the learning management systems, and different platforms can be a challenge both for the parent and for the child. I mean, especially if they have special needs. I consult in a school, and I was able to observe one of the sessions. And before the teacher actually got to the presentation, it was a lot of, teacher, I can't find the folder. Teacher, what do I press? So parang it's like so much to adjust to in terms of learning, how the whole system works. And then there are really differences from, between virtual learning and face-to-face learning, particularly for kids with special needs. Like Issa mentioned, they need tactile experiences. They need like multi-sensory approaches. It's still different if they're actually handling, manipulating materials when the teacher is actually right there, demonstrating to them what they need to do, or the teacher is actually able to supervise and directly guide them in their work. And it's different when you're just in a screen, right? And then, of course, focus and concentrate and attention issues. Although kids, of course, are glued to their screens, and they're used to that, it's different when it's a learning, when you're in class, right? I mean, you'll see these kids drifting off, or, getting easily distracted. So it's difficult to sustain their focus and attention. And then for those with learning challenges, it's difficult to keep up sometimes because, the demands are different when you're actually in class, where you can get teachers' help, or you can even get the help of your classmates. And then one particular issue, especially for older kids, is what we call executive functions. So these are like cognitive processes that enable us to meet our goals in an efficient way. So these involve skills like organization, planning, time management, problem solving. So when you're doing distance learning, there's a lot of independent study skills that's required of the student, right? The teacher will just say, here's your learning pack for the week, or these are the assignments you need to do during the asynchronous session. And then, like, if you're a child with executive functions problems, it's like, where do I even start? And then when it's time to submit, I forgot, so that's really a challenge. And then, as I mentioned also, like not having social interactions can be difficult because, it's important to learn with your peers and to learn from your peers. And so just being in a Zoom classroom takes away a lot of that. And as much as parent involvement is an advantage, I also see it as a challenge because all of us, work from home. It's difficult to, allot time for a lot of these things. And I mean, we face it, we're also tired and stressed and parang having to, do these things for our children, no matter how much we love them, can also be a struggle. And for some parents, it's also balancing that line between, just being there to monitor and guide them and actually doing everything for them, diba? Which again,
But that's why there's today night.
which defeats the whole purpose of, how we're supposed to learn. So in terms of how to support them, like some very basic tips, so as a parent, it's important that you know the learning platforms and that you're able to organize the digital files, provide structure and a consistent routine, and I think that's something that Michelle also mentioned, just having a schedule, knowing that this is the next subject, and even like she does with Jelly, having a checklist for the things that need to be done so that they're structured and guided. Then a very basic thing also, again, is to prepare the environment. Like make sure there's a designated workplace and it's separate from the play area. It's free from distractions. All the materials they need are, accessible. So it's not like in the middle of class they'll have to say, "Mom, I need a pencil," or "Mom, where's the paper?" Things like that. So everything is accessible to them. And then for kids with needs, sometimes it's important to also consider like the seating. There are sometimes special chairs that you can have for kids with sensory issues who have a hard time, staying still, or for kids with ADHD, it might be helpful to give them those fidgets to help them concentrate as they're sitting down and listening to the teacher. And I think it's important for parents to observe and monitor their child and see how they're doing. And then when you see that the child is having a hard time, then the next tip is really to communicate and collaborate with the teacher. To really reinforce that homeschool partnership where you seek the teacher's help and say, teacher, my child is having a hard time with this particular requirement. What can we do to make it easier for her? So, having that relationship, and for the teacher also to do check-ins with the student, to see, how are you doing? Are you having a difficult time with something? So really having that relationship between home and school is important, especially at this time. And then if your child needs accommodations, it would be helpful to be able to seek those accommodations. So like if your child has difficulty, let's say writing essays or whatever, then you can ask for alternative outputs. Like, can my child just do a PowerPoint presentation? Or if my child is creative, can he just do an art project rather than this other thing? So seeking accommodations is one way to support your child through this process. And then it's also important to teach them specific strategies. So let's say in relation to executive functions, if your child struggles with managing his time, then you can sit down and help them come up with like a calendar, plan out what they need to do, set deadlines and things like that. Because you're teaching them skills that they can carry over to many other things in their life, not just for their particular subjects or requirements at the moment. And then I think what's important is really to have that mindset of not focusing just on academic things. So to create opportunities for learning other things, like Michelle mentioned, like baking cookies is a great way to teach so many different skills and at the same time have fun. So parents can be creative or need to be creative and think about what do I want my child to learn and how can I teach them in a way that makes it very appealing and enjoyable for them. And then if your child has home programs, let's say for occupational therapy or speech therapy, it will be very good to try to implement them or work with your therapist so that things that are learned in their sessions, if they're having online sessions or in previous face-to-face therapy sessions, can still be carried over at home so that you can minimize any regressions in their skills. Mm-hmm. I know that's a lot of information.
All right. That's a lot. But that's good.
We have a doctor in the house, and I love how everything has really been listed down. Speaking of checklists, let's bring back Michelle. Michelle Aventajado, I think you'll get along.
Yes, I think so. Very much. I like the lists, Doc.
Right? And super, again, everything. It's not just about kids. Thank you, Doctora, for bringing out even teenagers. Because, again, this is a time, really, let's think about everybody who is going through what we're going through. This pandemic is just pushing us all to our limits, but it's just showing that we can do this. There are really ways to go around it, to keep going, even with it around.
So I think we had so much learnings today, but I want to ask both our guests, if there were only 3 things that parents should really do, what should it be? We're all alive. We're all about life in bullet points, diba? If only 3 lang. Let's start with you, Michelle.
Whew. Yikes. Start with Doc muna. Is there only 3 points of advice or 3 things?
Yes. 3 things that they need to do to be able to maximize this online distance learning.
Okay. Listen to your child would be the first.
I agree.
Second would be able to go with the flow, right? Because as much as we have schedules, we have to be able to adjust and adapt. And 3, be kind to yourself in the process, right?
That's why I had to ask that question. How are you guys doing? Because, taking all this it's a lot. It's not, it sounds like a lot. It is a lot. I wanted to acknowledge that. But I love how Michelle said, I don't know. I'm just
prayer. It's prayer.
Thank you for that.
So how about you, Doctora? Na three. Three.
Okay, yeah. I think similar to Michelle, I think the first is really to be attuned to your child. You know, to listen, to observe, and to be there for them in order, you know, because when you're attuned to your child, then you're better able to respond to what it is that they really need. And I think the second one would be really to work with other people. So whether it's the teacher, the pedia, the therapist, you don't have to do it alone. I mean, and even other family members. You know, if you need help, need advice with anything, you know, it would be good to reach out because you know, as Michelle said, it takes a village. You know, it's good to have the team helping you out because you know you really want what's best for your child. And I think the third should apply, which applies to everyone, I think, and it's related to what Michelle was saying about like 'cause you were asking her like how have you managed and all that. And I do believe also that you know God's grace sees us through all these things. But one particular advocacy I try to espouse during this time is really to help people realize the importance of self care. Yeah, and that really means like doing things that
You
will
need to function.
to take care of yourself because as they say, especially as a parent, there's that saying, right? Like you can't pour from an empty cup. You can't give to others what you yourself
I say
don't
that
have.
a lot.
So really taking care of yourself in what we call the four pillars of self-care. That's really taking care of your body. So, you know, getting good sleep, good nutrition, getting physical exercise. I mean, studies have shown that even just 30 minutes of physical exercise can sometimes be as good as popping an antidepressant. It really does so much to your hormones and to the endorphins in your body that make you feel better. So that's one, taking care of your body. The next is taking care of your mind. So constantly like learning and growing, challenging yourself to learn new things. I know people have been like learning to bake bread, to make cookies, to suddenly be plantitos and plantitas, you know, through this pandemic. So really keeping your mind active and doing things that can stimulate your growth. And third is I call it taking care of your heart. So really staying connected to people and also learning how to deal with your emotions because you know we all go through stress and anxiety and all that. And the fourth is taking care of your spirit. And so that's really like learning to be grateful, keeping connected to your higher power, mindfulness, meditation. So if we do these things for ourselves and our children see that, then it's something that we model for them and that they can also eventually learn to do for themselves. Yeah.
Live by example. Live by
Yep.
example.
Exactly.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think I've learned so many things today, yeah. Such a good episode.
Thank you so much. Again, Miss
Thank you.
Aventajado and Dr. Rica Ramos. Thank you. That was a gold mine.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, ladies.
Thanks for having
Thank
me.
you. Thank you for having me.
So there you
Thank
go.
you.
Again, if you have children with exceptionalities, different learners, you know what? I don't want to just. This episode isn't just about online learning. I think it's about life in general. It's
Yes,
life,
I agree. That's right.
So I think this is a gold mine of an episode. Thank you for the checklists from Michelle
Of
and the
course.
tips, of course, from Dr. Rica Ramos. How about us, Jeanette? I think there's a lot to take in, but if we were to really boil it down, we have this to share with all of you.
Okay. So for us, life in bullet points, I think what's important is to see what works with your child. I mean, there's a reason why it's called different learners. Because not two child or not two brains are alike. So it's very important that you know what works for your child and what works for your family. That's my number one.
And that should start with knowing your child, knowing your
Yes.
family. And two, I can't say this one. I say it all the time. Can't pour from an empty cup. You do have to be kind and take care of yourself. It was great that Dr. Rica brought that up. You can't take care of someone if you can't take care of yourself.
That's right. So I think the next one that I really like is making a schedule, having like a to-do list so that, our kids and our family have a sense of normalcy and of course feeling that you have accomplished something, right?
Stay on track. It's just, if not necessarily to just feel accomplished, it's really just keeping track of things because I personally hate, I forgot this or, oh, we didn't get to do that, diba? Stuff like that. If you write things down, just a simple matter of putting it on a piece of paper or a whiteboard to make it fun. Ask for help.
That's right.
That's one more thing about putting a schedule out there. It takes a village. Michelle kept saying it. Dr. Ria said it. It takes a village. So you don't have to do this on your own.
Yes, that's right. And because we're in this situation, we always need to take care of our body. So exercise is very important. As Doctora said, 30 minutes of, just activity is like popping an antidepressant. So get going, 30 minutes lang. Heart and spirit.
Yes.
That's right. So I think it's actually given us time. I mean, COVID has given us time to stop, to pause, and take care of ourselves better. And so let's take advantage of this time. So for everyone that's watching out there, we hope you learned something. And for you to get the chance to win this gift pack, check out this picture. All you have to do is give us your most important learnings for today. Just put it on the comment sections below.
Give us
Don't be shy.
Yeah, give us one or two, because there's a lot. So what was your favorite?
That's right. So we want to thank you for joining us. Don't forget to follow us or follow Chic Chats. It's Thursday, 5:30 at YouTube, Chic Driven Facebook page and Instagram IGTV. This has been Jeanette Ipapo-Tuason.
And I'm Issa Litton. Thank you for watching. We just gave you #YourBestLife and bullet points.